Ashley Dietz, president and CEO of the Florida Philanthropic Network, epitomizes many of the leaders we write about in the Business Observer. Hyper-focused, dedicated, and an appetite for constant improvement on leadership and her organization. To read more about leaders like Ashley, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Ashley Dietz, president and CEO of the Florida Philanthropic Network. Ashley, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Good to see you.
You as well. We met for the first time when you were in our 40 Under 40 issue a couple of years ago, I believe.
I can't believe that's been 2 years. I'm still technically under 40. I've got about 6 months left. And
6 months left.
No longer be able to say that.
Yes. Well, I'm on the other side of that, so you'll be okay. I think you'll. Okay. 40 is okay.
I'll call you for moral support when I reach that.
Yeah, you do get some. You probably know, you read about obviously in your own personal life, but you do kind of get some aches and pains, after 40. So it's just life, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think I was feeling pretty confident about it. And then I hit 39 and now I feel like I'm barreling towards the other side of life. So when I hit 40, Mark, I'll give you a call.
All right, let's do it. Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about your career. We're going to talk about nonprofit work, philanthropy work, and kind of how you intersect both of those and leadership as well. Before we get into that, I want our audience to get to know you a little bit better. We're going to do 3 totally unrelated questions. Start with, what was the longest airplane flight you've ever been on and to where?
Okay, so I used to live in Sydney, Australia. So the longest airplane flight I've ever taken was actually recently when we went back with our family to Australia. My husband's Australian. We flew 16 and a half hours from Houston to Sydney. I think it might have even been 17 hours. That's the longest flight I've ever been on. But we still had to connect to get to Houston. So technically, the total time was over 24 hours of travel time.
Wow.
But the longest flight was about 17.
17 hours. And you said I think you have young-ish children. Do I remember that right?
I have 2 daughters, 11 and 6.
11 and 6. So how did everybody do on a 16-hour flight?
Well, we were in economy, so we were in the back and we were with other people. And listen, the kids did fine because they have iPads and they're able to sleep on the plane. I think for the adults, being in a seated position for that long was pretty brutal, but it's worth it. Australia is a beautiful country. Our family is Australian as well, so we love going back. So we were just really looking forward to the getting there part. The jet lag on the way home, once we are back to Tampa where we live in Florida, was awful, was way worse than the going there. But, they do a pretty good job now. We caught up on all the movies we don't get to see, because we're working in all the activities that we're part of in Florida. So we watched a bunch of movies and we were okay. So it's worth it once we got there. But 17 hours it's a long time to be in any one place.
It is, yes, in one too, for sure. All right, well, good for you in Australia. I've never been, but I obviously have heard that that's amazing. Okay, what are the 2 most used apps on your phone?
Oh gosh, I feel like I might need to look. Embarrassingly, and my kids would be really embarrassed, it's probably TikTok is number 1 for me. I call it the TikTok just to embarrass my children. The TikTok. Yes. I don't post anything. I'm a voyeur into other people's lives, but I like it because it's kind of like Google in real time. How do I do something? I'll put it in the search engine on TikTok and then someone will have a video of them doing it. So TikTok is probably number 1.
Yes.
And the second one is actually a shared app for my kids' sports. My daughter is really into flag football, and I'm helping as coach some of her teams. And we are embarrassingly, as parents and coaches, way too involved and too into it. So I would say TikTok, and then the sports apps that follow my kids' sports.
The sports one is great, obviously, because you have the connection with your kids. The TikTok thing is interesting because I'm the same way. I'm not on it that much, but I hear always about it, right? I'll be listening to like a pop culture podcast or some other thing, and I'm like, well, we should know what's going on with TikTok, but we always cringe for for all these outside reasons. I'd be the same way. No, I don't want to, but that's how you stay aware of what's happening.
You can stay aware of what's happening. I tend to try to not look at, things that are politically motivated on there, because that's a rabbit hole I don't need to go down for me. But I like it because you can look up, things that are related to topics that you care about. So, we're a big sports family, so I can look up, NFL highlights XYZ, and they'll pop up. Masters is coming up this weekend. I was on TikTok this morning looking at all of Tiger Woods' previous Masters win. And it has all kind of in one spot. So there are some positives to it. Do I think that it's a time waster? 100%. Would my husband say that it's very annoying that I'm on it all the time? 100%. So it is something that I'm not necessarily proud of. But if I'm being honest, it's my most used app for sure.
Got it. All right, last rapid fire question. When you're at your best, what is your morning routine?
When I'm at my best, I think for us as a family, our whole family really thrives on routine. We all get up at around 6 o'clock to start our day. And I think if I can make sure that my kids are taken care of, they're on their way to school, and I can already be at my desk starting work at 8 a.m. is kind of when I'm at my best. I tend to be more productive in the morning in general between the time of 8 to 2 p.m. If you're scheduling an afternoon meeting with me, I might be there. I'm not sure how much of me is there, just because I tend to be super productive in the morning time. So just, being in routine, making sure I have a good night's sleep, getting up at 6, getting things rolling. And most importantly, I have to have a coffee. If there is no coffee, it is a problem for everybody, both professionally and personally. So coffee is a must-do first thing in the morning as well for me.
Got it. Excellent. And we're in the morning here, recording in mid-April at 9:30 in the morning. That's great.
And
All
I've got my coffee.
Great.
I'm ready to go.
So we're going to have the best Ashley. We always would anyway. Okay, so Florida Philanthropic Network. Tell us a little bit about what that organization is, kind of what its elevator pitch is, and what its mission is.
So the Florida Philanthropic Network, we are a statewide member network of foundations, and our mission is to build philanthropy for a better Florida. We've been around for over 25 years now at this point in time. I've been in my role for 4.5 years, and we have about 130 plus foundations and affiliate partners that make up our membership. So it can be your family foundations, corporate social responsibility folks, you've got community foundations, private foundations, public charities, and really they are making investments into communities, into Florida to help, Floridians prosper and thrive. That's really the goal of our foundations that make up our network. 80% of our funders that are part of FPN are funding locally or regionally. Florida is a big state. We're the third most populous state now in the country, and we have philanthropy to back that up too, but they're funding more at a regional and localized level. We have some statewide foundations or folks that are funding across the state or in many localities across the state. And then we have national foundations who aren't based in Florida, but they're making significant investments in the state of Florida, who also make up our network. So I think our network's really unique in that way. We're the only one that of its kind for a state like Florida. There are other folks like myself. We're called philanthropic serving organizations that are across the country. And there's one called Philanthropy Southeast, who we also work with quite closely as well. But we're the only one for the state of Florida.
And so when you say the members are of different sizes and sort of variety for the West Coast of Florida, give us some examples. Who would be a member of FPN?
So some of our awesome members that you would probably know in your region would be the Charles and Marjorie Barancik Foundation, the Patterson Foundation, Gulf Coast Community Foundation of Sarasota County, Selby Foundation, United Way Suncoast. That just to give you a flavor.
So those would be some of the
in your region.
Got it.
And if I missed any that I didn't say, I'm sorry. But or Manatee Community Foundation,
yes.
Folks like our network.
The ones that are out there, we that are visible at least. I'm sure there's others as well. As you mentioned, you have a larger member portfolio. Tell us about your career. How did you get into FPN and this leadership position? What were some of the things you were doing before this?
Sure. So I think for anyone who's in the field of philanthropy, definitely for me, I've been in this space for about 16, 17 years. There really isn't a degree for this. Really, I kind of fell into my lap. I really wanted to be an attorney. That was my goal. My mom, dad, and my sister and her husband are all lawyers. And so I thought that was definitely going to be my path. And then I ended up getting a master's degree in public policy in Australia. And when I was there doing kind of my end of my degree program, I got a part-time job doing grant administration for the city of Sydney in Australia. And then that part-time job led into my full career in philanthropy. Managing grants, outgoing grants was really where I started as a funder. So I don't know if this was a path that I really saw for myself. I just kind of took an opportunity and ran with it. I think my favorite part about being in philanthropy, at least in the roles that I've had, been lucky enough to have, is that it combines two things: your ability to be strategic, utilize your brain, and to think creatively of how to solve complex issues, like, problems that are in community, but also lead with your heart. You get to feel really good about the work that you're doing. You're making a difference in community and helping others. And sometimes it's hard to find a job that does both of those things. So I feel really grateful for that opportunity. We moved to Tampa for my husband's job. He's in the wine industry. And so when we moved here, I wound up at United Way Suncoast, which also covers Sarasota County in that region as well. And so I was managing outgoing grants at United Way prior to my job here, which I've had now for 4.5 years. So grateful to have this role. It's kind of like my dream job. I get to hang out with funders, which is where I started. I'm in philanthropy, and think about, when I was at United Way and we were members of FPN, what did I want out of a funder network? I think about that all the time when I'm in my role, is what do funders need and want? Because I used to be one.
Used to be one. Well, it's so
Yeah.
important. On that theme, how important it is as a leader to kind of know your why and execute on it, right? Because you just mentioned that you think about that 4.5 years in, you're still thinking about your why. So how important is it to know your why as a leader?
So I think in this particular role, it was less about Ashley's why and more about what is the why and the purpose of the members that we serve. So when I first started in my role 4.5 years ago, the first thing I did in the first 3 months was meet with every member, every leader of every organization that was currently part of FPN, to say, what do you want out of a member network? What are things we've done well in the past 20 years? Where are areas that we can improve? And really make sure that we are excellent steward of the dollars that they're making investments in us as a member network. We know as foundations that is money that is otherwise invested in community, and we want to make sure they see that return on their investment, and that we're always thinking in that lens when we're kind of providing offerings and support to the network and also to the philanthropic sector. So I think that the listening part was really important, to understanding the why of the members. For me as a leader, my why is always like, highest level of impact, but also authenticity. We want to make sure that we are showing up and being collaborative, but that people can trust us. And we only really can do that through being transparent and through being authentic. We try the best that we can to do that as a member network. And in response, since I've started, we've grown 48% as a statewide network, which I'm super proud of that. A lot of those were foundations that were part of our network historically, and they may have not come back, but now they're back. And then we have new members that are part of FPN. And then we have affiliate partners that are also part of our network, which are statewide entities that are doing other really important strategic work in the state. So I think the why for us really comes down to what is most important to our members, and then how can we lead and be the most authentic version of ourselves at FPN.
And so you're talking about authentic leadership. Tell us a little bit about what you look for in good leaders, whether it's somebody within your organization that you're looking to promote, or just in your life working with these, foundations and partners. What stands out to you that are good leadership characteristics?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think number one, with strong leaders, obviously you want someone that has a vision for their organization or a vision for the work that they're doing. But are they willing to collaborate? Can you trust them to collaborate? Are they going to back up the things that they said they're going to either partner with you on, or that they're saying they're doing locally, and actually do the things they say they're going to do? My preference is to be around people that are pretty direct. I respond well to that. I don't respond well to passive aggressiveness. I'm sure you can relate. It's just not my style. I'd rather someone be direct in what their needs are, direct in how they can be supportive or not. I think that kind of level of transparency builds trust. And we know that collaboration really only moves at the speed of trust. So with leaders that show up consistently, do what they say they're going to do, and back that up, and be direct and honest with kind of their mission and vision is to me what I signifies as a good leader. And this may seem kind of like irreverent, but also like a leader that can lead with humor. we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously. At the end of the day, we're all just human beings. Leaving the ego at the door, I think, is really important. But the leaders that I enjoy working with the most, or the partners are the ones that I can have the most fun with, that I can have a laugh with. We still get a lot done. We're still really strategic and productive in the work that we do, but also we do it with a joke, with a smile, and not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, the humor part is so important, right? Because what you're doing is serious work. Especially when you talk about it's other people's monies that is at some
Yes.
level here, whether it's a grant or a funding or an event or whatever it is. There's serious side to that, but I think it's so important to have that lightheartedness, that because you're with these people for whatever it's going to be, right? 8 hours a day or maybe more when you're working on an intense project. That's a lot of hours together.
Yes. And I think that humor and lightheartedness fosters connection, fosters trust. That then when you have difficult things you have to make decisions on, you already have that rapport with the leaders at the table or their staff or their team. So
Yeah.
I think it's critically important, that human connection part.
And you said collaboration moves at the speed of trust. What a great phrase. How have you seen that play out in your career, both ways, good and bad, right? Are there examples of, you don't have to name names, but, where something didn't work out, right? Where the collaboration just wasn't there. Talk a little bit about how you've collaborated in your career.
Sure. I think in the collaborations that maybe didn't pan out, I think there has to be some shared accountability there. We try to show up always the best as we can as FPN, but we're not perfect too. And that kind of self reflection and ownership of, okay, in this situation, we could have done X, Y, and Z differently to have that collaboration go more smoothly, right? I think the ones that have been really, really successful, and I'm happy to name those, we have a wonderful partnership with the Florida Chamber Foundation, as well as the Florida Nonprofit Alliance and Florida Policy Institute, these kind of statewide partners that we have, the Consortium of Florida Education Foundations, these groups that we work really, really closely with, Florida College Access Network. I think that those have worked really well because there's a shared understanding between leaders of what our outcomes are and what our shared kind of goal and vision are, but also the ability to be nimble on the fly. So the Florida Chamber is one of my favorite partners to work with because we're able to kind of be nimble. Sometimes you work together and things need to change, and we're not just static and stuck in the way that we're doing work together. Sometimes you got to pivot and do things quickly. And they're wonderful partners in that respect. And also giving each other like the kudos, like making sure that you are showing up equally with a partner to say, hey, we'll share the work that you're doing if you'll share ours. And how can we, work together to help our respective stakeholders? So we're really lucky that we have such incredible statewide partners that have been at the table with us. Like the children's movement is another one that always shows up as a wonderful statewide partner and collaborator. But all of that happens through trust building, shared relationships, responsibilities, and accountability. And I think it's important when you do make a mistake, and we try to do this, to be like, hey, we messed that up, or hey, actually, it wasn't the way that we wanted it to go, but we still want to work with you. We want to move forward. So being reflective on your own kind of role in these collaborations is really, really important to move forward. So then the next time you partner, you can be even better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Learning from that. Let's talk about mentorship a little bit. Ashley, tell us a little bit about who your mentors are and what you've learned from them as far as leadership goes.
I've been so fortunate to have incredible mentors since the beginning of my career. I think your initial mentors are really, for me, were my parents and my sister, particularly my mom and my sister, who are just, incredible businesswomen, both attorneys who have forged their own way, through their careers. So I'm always really grateful for that kind of example that I had as a young child, to see them both shine in that way as strong women leaders. I think my board is phenomenal. I'm so grateful for the board that I have here at FPN. One of my mentors has been Johnette Ginling. She's the president and CEO of the Space Coast Health Foundation, and just all around amazing person. She just always, as a CEO of a big health foundation, she leads with kindness. She's firm and tough in terms of her feedback, but always does it with the end goal being for you to get better, or for your organization to get better. And you need that kind of tough love when things don't go the way you want it to. And I'm just so grateful for her and our current board chair, Grace Sastrodoti. She comes from the Community Foundation Northeast Florida. She's also phenomenal. But I also think some of my best mentors have been like peer colleagues. It's not always that kind of hierarchical kind of mentorship. I've been lucky enough at my previous role at United Way, Gina Gallo, who's one of my colleagues there. I mean, I strive to be the kind of leader that she is. She's someone that trusts her team and doesn't micromanage. But I mean, now she's a consultant and we work more kind of at the same level, but she's definitely been a mentor to me, even though we're of similar ages and we're friends. It doesn't have to always come from a place of hierarchy, like who you're mentoring, like how you receive that mentee-mentor relationship. And I would say even my staff at FPN now, our VP of programs and our manager of grants and administration, I learn from them every day. They're every bit as a mentor to me as I am to them. So I think it can be reciprocated at many levels.
Yeah. Find mentorship in different spots.
Yeah.
As a leader, how have you dealt with setbacks or things that do not go your way, whether, there's all these kinds of examples, right? Obstacles that happen to us, whether it's a project, as you meant, collaboration that didn't go well, an employee you wanted to hire that didn't work out, or employee you did hire who didn't work out. How do you deal as a leader with setbacks and obstacles?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing as a leader you have to do, and I've kind of already alluded to this in this conversation, is to hold space for what went wrong, make sure you take accountability for that, what you can learn from that, but then not stewing in it too long. I try to be a half glass full kind of person, looking to the future, trying to be as positive as we can be. And sometimes things are the way that they are. You can't fix them and you've got to move on from that. But I think you have to acknowledge and work through and talk about what didn't go correctly, where there can be improvements, but then actually implement that and move forward. There have been many times, even in this role, where things didn't go exactly how we wanted to. But we know that through our kind of 3 key strategies of convening, partner, and advocating, that's what we do in kind of the mechanism of how we run things at FPN, that there are going to be those moments again. So instead of just saying, oh, this will never do that again, or this didn't work, we'll say, okay, well, what are 3 things that we could use again? And where are 3 areas that we can improve? And then implementing those in the strategies of when we convene and when we partner and when we advocate on behalf of the sector, and learning and growing from those failures. Because I think failures are only opportunities. So we try to look at that with a half glass full lens here at FPN.
Yeah, excellent. So as we are in the spring here, we're looking toward, spring and summer, rest of the year, what can we expect from FPN? What's sort of top of mind that you're particularly excited about or looking forward to the rest of the year?
So we are now in our, I think it's 4 months in to our 3-year new strategic plan. We just finished up our first 3, and now we're in the next kind of 3 years of our planning. And I think for us, even though we've had significant growth and a lot of wins, we're not slowing down as an organization. We know, particularly right now in the public policy and advocacy space, it's more important than ever that we are digging in as a network. And so we're actually holding a number of trainings over the course of the next 6 months for foundations to go deeper in their public policy and advocacy work in a state like Florida. We are a bipartisan organization, a nonpartisan organization, but we want to make sure that we hold space for these hard topics that are going on right now in our state and nationally. So I think leaning in to that is where we kind of see ourselves in the next 3 to 4 months, and just continuing to be strategic in our work and partnering with our partners, lifting up the voices of not only the funders that we represent or that are part of our network, but also our affiliate partners and the great work they're doing across the state.
Excellent. Well, Ashley Dietz, President and CEO of the Florida Philanthropic Network, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.